Hello, Whovians, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who, The Daleks' Master Plan, starring William Hartnell, Peter Purves, and Adrienne Hill. So, The Daleks' Master Plan. This is the epic 12-part story, which sees the Doctor come across the Daleks for the fourth time. Well, the third time, but actually for us it's the fourth time, because Mission to the Unknown had the Daleks in briefly, but it didn't feature the Doctor. It just had the three astronauts. So, the Daleks' Master Plan. Basically, this is going to be a bit of a different kind of review. Because the story is so long, I am having to watch it in two chunks. I'm recording parts 1 to 6 now, as I speak, and tomorrow, at the time I'm recording this, which you will see, tomorrow you will see another segment of me reviewing. Today I'm talking about the first half of the story, and then tomorrow I talk about the second half of the story, and then the review will have both parts edited together, so then I talk about the whole story. It's just a lot easier that way. Because there's a lot to talk about with this story. Currently, as I'm recording this, as I said, I haven't actually seen parts 7 to 12 yet. I've watched parts 1 to 6. So, the basic plot of the Daleks' Master Plan is that in the year 4000, the Daleks conspire to conquer the solar system. Their scheme involves treachery at the highest levels, and a weapon capable of destroying the very fabric of time. Only the Doctor and his friends can prevent catastrophe, and there is no guarantee they will escape with their lives. That is essentially the plot of this story. Okay, going by the first half of the story, parts 1 to 6, so far, I love this story. Wow. Just wow. I am completely blown away. And this is only the first half of the story. It makes me want to watch the second half of the story, like, now. But obviously I can't, because it would be too long, and it would be too much for me. My goodness me. What an absolute masterpiece. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the story is missing, so a lot of it has been reconstructed. But this is hands down the best reconstruction that Loose Cannon have done of the ones I've seen so far. And this is one of the best paced stories in Doctor Who. The writing is incredible. I mean, there's so many twists and turns, it's unreal. I mean, and this review will be spoiler-filled, so if you haven't seen the story, I would advise you clicking away from this video now until you have seen the story. It's a much more of a... I mean, well, The Mythmakers was a bit more of a fun story. This is a sort of more of a darker, more intense kind of story. And the Daleks are ruthless and merciless in this story. There's so many people that die. It's really quite intense and brutal. I mean, even from the beginning, we see Stephen poisoned, and we're seeing Katerina trying to cure him. And, you know, it becomes this kind of big conflict with the Doctor, Stephen, Katerina, and the Daleks, led by Chen, Maverick Chen. They're trying to get this thing... Oh, what's it called? And when the Doctor and co meet up with the character of Brett, that's really cool. By Nicholas Courtney, I believe. Brett's a very good character. I was surprised that he didn't last very long. He seems to die quite quickly in the story at like part 4, I think, in part 4. Um, and we later find out that he's actually killed by his own sister, Sarah, who is told that that her brother is a traitor and has been forced to kill him, even though she doesn't want to. So there's so much tension in the story. This is probably the darkest story in the show up to this point that we'd seen thus far. Definitely of the William Hartnell stuff. I mean, wow. And the episode just moves at this relentless pace. I mean, the Daleks are going around killing people. They're burning jungles. They are unstoppable. And the Supreme Dalek as well. Oh, wow. There's so much stake here. There's a sense of urgency. The tension is brilliant. The direction is superb. And, you know, I also think that the performances are great. William Hartnell probably gives his best performance that I have ever seen him give. He is so good in the first half of this story. He is so good. You know, I mean, he hasn't slipped up on his lines very much. There was one time when he did, but other than that, he's been perfect. And he's much more urgent in this story. He's like trying to keep things moving, and there's a lot more confrontations between the Doctor and Stephen, and also Brett as well. Like they're always having these arguments, and he still manages to have that charm that we so love in his earlier stories. And I think the Daleks are great so far. From what I've seen, the Daleks are great, and it's really a testament to how popular these characters are. That even like the 4th time we've seen them, they still manage to be scary and utterly convincing and threatening. You feel like the Daleks are one step ahead this time. They really are. They are, you know, they're outwitting the Doctor and friends. Stephen Taylor. Stephen gets to shine in this story. So far, anyway, he's had a great amount to do. He's nearly been poisoned. He's been injured. He's been very direct and confrontational. He's really kind of come into his own by this point. And with the absence of Vicky's now gone. So it gives Stephen a chance to become the centre of the companions, basically. Although there's a lot of chopping and changing of companions in the first half of this story. We have Katerina, who joined us in the Mythmakers at the very end. She replaced Vicky in the TARDIS. Very sadly, Katerina is killed off in this story. I think this is to do with the writers. They just couldn't find a way to write her, because the character is from ancient Greece and she doesn't really understand a lot of the future, and they just thought it was going to be too frustrating to write her. Oh, excuse me, I've got a cold. Which is very sad in a way that they kind of made a mistake in that sense, and then they felt like they had to kill her off to basically rewrite that. Whilst, I mean, she doesn't last very long in the story. Her death scene is powerful. I must say, I didn't expect her to die in such a dramatic way by him being taken into the airlock and being sucked out of the airlock. And it's, I mean, for such a brief character, it's really sad. I mean, it's dark, it's intense. I mean, it's dramatic. It's the first sort of companion to die. I mean, some people may not count her as an official companion, but obviously, I guess I have to, really. Even though she only lasted a few episodes. I mean, for the brief time she had with the Doctor, they didn't really have much of a connection, but they had a few nice moments. So it was sad to see her go. Would have been nice for her to stretch the potential of that character a little bit further, but oh well, that's what they have to do. And then she's replaced later on by Sarah, who is Brett's sister. And obviously, by the end of this half of the story, we're still with Sarah. Sarah joins the Doctor and Stephen, and obviously reveals that she was Brett's sister, and then they kind of go on from there. And I think Chen is a great antagonist, and he's kind of like the puppeteer of all this. He's kind of like pulling the strings. He's trying to keep the Daleks sweet, but he's also messing with the Doctor and co. And I said the Daleks are ruthless, and the production design is fantastic. I mean, when we see all that big meeting scene with all of the Alliance aliens, that's brilliant. That's really good. And the prosthetics and makeup are brilliant. They've really spent the budget well on this story, from what I can see. I have to talk about the first 6 episodes. You know, I can't speak for the last half of the story just yet. Not until I've watched it tomorrow, at the time I'm recording this. But you'll see that in a minute. So overall, I mean, the first 6 parts are really, really good. It just hasn't stopped. The pace is like a rocket. The deaths are intense. Like Katarina's death was very powerful. Brett's death was quite dramatic. The other soldiers, the other people that die are quite die in quite a dramatic way as well. It feels like the amount of deaths, the Daleks are right on top of this. They really have the Doctor kind of cornered, essentially, and the Doctor is frantically trying to stop them. And then obviously they've let me try and find out what the name of that thing is. Tyrannium. Sorry, guys. Tyrannium. That's what it is. When Stephen switches the fake Tyrannium for the real one, and then the Doctor, seemingly reluctantly, hands over the fake one to the Daleks and Chen, and they buy it. They think that they've been completely, they've won. They think they've won. So the Doctor definitely gets his own back on this on them at some point. But man, oh man, guys, this story is so far is amazing. It's intense, it's dramatic, it's quite emotional, it's dark, it's epic. I mean, this is seriously good. I am hyped to see the second half of the story and bring this review to you. Well, obviously, if you're watching this, I have brought the review to you. Wow, just wow. I'm kind of speechless, really, at how good it is. And yeah, I mean, this Stephen Moffat, take note, because this is how you write a Doctor Who story. Oh, but yeah, and I think part 6 has ended on a good note, and I'm excited to see where it all goes. And I think the cliffhangers for these episodes are very good. Yeah, there's not much else to say. I'm gonna close off this section of the review. So that's it for now, folks. Yeah, on to part 2. Hello, guys. So on to part 2. Right. So part 2 of this story. The Doctor. Well, the first part of this second half is called The Feast of Stephen, which is actually kind of a bridge episode in between the main events of the story, and it sees, for some bizarre reason which I cannot fathom, the Doctor, Stephen, and Sarah go back to 1960s England outside a police station, and then it turns into this weird chase, and they end up on this film set. What? It's so weird. It feels so out of place. I know it's not meant to be a huge part of the story, but it does continue after episode 6 of Dalek's Master Plan, and it just feels so out of place. It's like, what the fuck? What is this? Like, it has no point to the story. So that would have to be my big one criticism of this story, is that part 7, The Feast of Stephen, is completely unnecessary, and the story makes no sense. I'm all for having a Christmas special, something fun, but it just doesn't feel right. It's so out of place, and I just found it really well. I mean, the reconstruction of it is good, and the episode looks great. But Loose Cannon have done a great job reconstructing it. But as a story, there isn't really a story. It's just a random chase on a film set. So yeah, moving swiftly on from that, and the title of that episode has nothing to do with Stephen Taylor. It's not in relation to Stephen the character, Stephen Taylor. Then we move on to Volcano, where the Doctor, Stephen, and Sarah come across the meddling monk. Yes, it's nice to see the meddling monk return after the Time Meddler, and he wants revenge, and he tries to steal the TARDIS again, and of course the Doctor manages to outwit him again. But he's a very interesting character here, and we think that he's obviously in league with the Daleks, and he's really just in it for himself. He's a very meddling character, to say the least. And there's an interesting line that Stephen says to the monk when they're captured. He says, you know, if I got the chance, I'd exterminate you rather than the Daleks, or something like that. So that was quite funny. And then we head to ancient Egypt for the story. So we're going to various different locations. And I think the production design for ancient Egypt looks astounding. I mean, wow. The sets are amazing. The Egyptians are all great. And the Daleks are stacking up quite the body count in this story. I mean, there's a lot of people that die in the story. We have all the Egyptians that die. Katerina dies in the beginning of the story. Brett dies towards the beginning of the story. And sadly, towards the end of the story, Sarah dies. I mean, the last act of the story really becomes a big climax. Like it's probably one of the most powerful scenes in Doctor Who that I've ever seen up to this point. I mean, I haven't seen much, but out of the Hartnell era, definitely. I mean, it's very, very intense. Obviously, we have all the stuff with the Alliance and how we see that kind of fall apart. And when Mavic Chen dies, I mean, Mavic Chen's an interesting character. I think I did talk about him earlier in the review. He's kind of like this Lord of the Solar System. So it's really interesting to see how the Daleks kind of lose faith in him and end up, well, killing him, to say the least. So when he met his fate, that was very, very interesting. What else? Yes, in regards to Sarah's demise, well, I mean, that is very sad. It's, the scene involves the Doctor, Sarah, and Stephen running back to the TARDIS with the Time Destructor, to keep it away from the Daleks and try and deactivate it. And the Time Destructor has its effect on everything, and like the planet starts to die. Kemble, I believe the planet is. Stephen kind of makes it back to the TARDIS first, and then he's then followed by Sarah and the Doctor, although they both start to age, and Sarah ages to death, really, which is very quite brutal. That was very sad. That shocked me. The way she died. I kind of had a feeling she was gonna die, with the way she was acting in the climax, and it was like she was telling the Doctor to just go, you know, get out of it, go. Like I thought, okay, she's gonna sacrifice herself, but it turned out she died of old age. I was like, wow, oh my god. And the Doctor's on the verge of dying, and Stephen is trying to help him. Stephen comes out the TARDIS and tries to help him, and he's like, get back to the ship! Like, I mean, he doesn't say it quite like that, but you know what I mean? Like, he's on the cusp of death, and Stephen, like, obviously obeys him and goes into the TARDIS, and the Doctor definitely follows him afterwards. But it was a very intense moment. I mean, there isn't as much rapid tension as the first half of the story, where we had a lot of death and a lot of, you know, dark moments. I mean, there's a lot that happens here. There's tension, but the first couple of parts, obviously with obviously, well, the first like 3 parts of this half of the story, parts I think 7 to 9, aren't as intense, but the rest of it is pretty intense. And obviously there's a moment when the Doctor has to hand over the real Pteridium. Yeah, Pteridium. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. But obviously he does it in a very interesting way. He kind of he switches around the monk's TARDIS to make it look like the Doctor's TARDIS. So he manages to outsmart the monk once again, which is very interesting. But the final scene of this story is very powerful. It's a very emotional scene when the Doctor's quite happy. He's like, "Oh yeah, we won, we did it." and Stephen's like, "But what about all of them that died? You know, Katerina, Brett, Sarah." Like, he's very sorrowful, and the Doctor's like, "Yes." Like, and it's a very sad moment as they walk back to the TARDIS. Obviously, most of this story is missing, so we have it in reconstruction form by loose cannon. I think like 3 of the episodes have survived, which is very sad to see, really. But the reconstruction is amazing. This is the first time where they've used CGI as well. They've CGI'd some of the Daleks just to make it more of a moving reconstruction, which I appreciate as well. And for a story that's this long, it has actually moved at a very good pace. My only problem is part 7 just doesn't fit. You should take out the Feast of Stephen. You don't need it. I mean, even on its own, it's a nothing episode. Like, nothing happens in it. It's just a random chase. It doesn't have any significance to the plot. It's just nothing. Like, it disrupted the story a bit for me. But the rest of it was amazing. I was blown away by the direction. The writing is great. The fact that we have such a huge scope is amazing. This is an epic story. This is epic. It's 12 parts, and wow, it never lost me. I mean, the Volcano set, Ancient Egypt, Campbell in the jungle. It's all fantastic. And wow, this story contains some of the best performances of William Hartnell and Peter Purves. Both of them give amazing performances as the Doctor and Stephen. It is very sad that a lot of people die. I mean, obviously Katerina was a complete waste of a character, so, but they knew that kind of when they were writing this story, so they thought, well, they had to get rid of her, and they got rid of her in the best way they could, for the story anyway. I like the character of Sarah, Sarah Kingdom. She definitely tends to mellow out a bit more as she goes into the second half of the story, after she kind of joins the Doctor and Stephen, and her death was very sad. Was very, very sad. And I think Peter Purves as Stephen, this is his best performance so far. He really gets to shine in this story. He gets to take full front. As I said earlier, obviously because Vicky's gone, Stephen, that gives more of a chance for Stephen to go into the limelight, which is great. And he's very direct and, you know, fearless in this story. He really is. And obviously because he's seen the Daleks before, so he kind of knows what they're all about, really. Yeah. And William Hartnell is fantastic. He gives a great performance as the Doctor. He's still very funny, very charming, and very direct as well. I mean, the Daleks, you know, and the Daleks are really, really good in the story. They are ruthless. They just kill, and they kill, and they kill, and they kill, and they won't stop killing. And this alliance of aliens is very interesting, and how that kind of, by the end of the story, it all falls apart. Like, Chen and the Daleks turn on them, And I mean, there's a lot of tension in this story. There really is a lot of tension. This obviously, because it's 12 parts, it was aired over 3 months. So I bet the viewers watching this were anxiously awaiting the story to end and see where it was all going to go. I think it's a very, very excellent story. I love it. And it's definitely my favourite Hartnell story so far. It really is. I mean, obviously I'd love to see it in its complete form, but sadly we just, it's missing, which is such a shame that most of it is missing. Obviously we have 3 episodes out of 12, which is, you know, a quarter of the story, but it's not, it's a shame that it's not more. But at least all the audio survives, which was very good, and thank you for those fans that recorded that. You know, without you, we wouldn't be able to review these things. And I think from a production standpoint, it looks fantastic. It is very long. I think the story maybe is a wee bit too long. I think take out part 7, and then it's pretty much perfect, really. I absolutely adore this story, and I am definitely going to give this story a 10 out of 10. And it's nice to have the meddling monk back as well. He's very good. He's very funny. Yeah, this is truly an amazing story. And yeah, sadly, goodbye Katerina and goodbye Sarah. 2 companions that were never meant to be for the long running of the show. So we now move on to what's the next story? Next story is The Massacre, so stay tuned for my review of The Massacre. Please let me know what you think of the Dalek's master plan. That's my review of it. Please comment down below, let me know. Stay tuned for my review of The Massacre, and until then, thank you guys all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See ya.